Haven't haven't heard how that's going right now. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, the 200 Li default for Animesh is gone. The best description of how the cost works now is in a forum post. We should get into a little more persistent documentation. There's a little bit of coverage in the wiki, but there's more details, I think, in the forum post. But the short summary is that you've got a base cost of 15 for an Animesh link set. That's for the streaming cost, and then additional streaming cost based on the number of more triangles you have. It's complex LOD. And then the story for the other LEDs is a bit more. Um, and that's all for calculating the streaming cost. The land impact is the max of the streaming cost and some other calculation. So it's possible for the cost to actually be determined something else. But that's the link to the forum post that has the current formula.
I think we've gotten a little too used to all sorts of things being super cheap land impact wise. I think we forget the old
Yeah,
days when we just had prims.
yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of our existing formulas have significant problems, and we're in the process of trying to get those updated. But in the meantime, we have to come up with numbers for Animesh that you know reflect as best we can work out the real performance cost. Question about stress tests for low-end machines to see how much potential addition of all bones into the scene affects lower-end CPUs. I mean, we did some performance testing. This was back in the Bento days when we were adding the bones. We did some performance testing on various machines. It's the cost really is more determined by how many rigged vertices you have more than just how many bones. If the bones are just sort of existing but nothing attached to them, that's much overhead. Increase the Animesh attachment limit. We don't currently have any plans to change that for the first release of Animesh. As we've mentioned, there's some potential follow-on projects, that we may look at after the initial release goes out, and so various factors that go into the product might be reconsidered. In the future. I'm not saying never about anything, but we don't have any current plans. I'm not sure I understand the question about Arctan. Will avatars end up getting any sort of resource caps? You're thinking about something like the suggestion to have a maximum number of polys or something like that.
The land impact is the cap, isn't it?
But it doesn't apply to attachments, right? Attachments don't have a land impact.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Arctan itself is really just figuring out costs more effectively. It's not about exactly what the best enforcement mechanism is, but I expect that that's the sort of thing we'd be considering next once we have good data about the costs. $38. Yeah, there is a limit on number of attachments, which is the 38 number. Release date for Animesh? No, we don't have a definite release date yet. As I mentioned, we think we're pretty much done with the server side work, so hopefully we'll be able to get that out into RC on the main grid, relatively soon. On the viewer side, we've got this LED bounding box work, which is I think the behavior should be improved quite a bit, but there's definitely some some stuff left to do for that, and we have a couple of other active JIRAs. So the time horizon for the viewer is going to be a little farther out, but again, we don't have a definite date. Oh, in terms of ARC calculation gaming, the ARC calculation for Animesh is, and this should be out in the current project viewer. The ARC calculation for Animesh is now related to the streaming cost calculation for Animesh, so it shouldn't be subject to quite the same kinds of issues with scale-based distortions and that sort of thing. But it's it's not necessarily the last word in exactly how it's going to get calculated, but it is going through a different computation now that's more based on the streaming formula. And Arc does apply for Animeshes in the case that you have an Animesh attachment, and that you can also see Arc displays for Animeshes in world, and those also will be considered for Jelly Dolls, I think. There's a question about click-through objects. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Could you give more details on what you're looking for there?
Basically a way to, when you have an object in world, say a prim mist, and you have a chair sitting under that mist, you cannot click on the way to be able to click through that mist to click on the chair without having it linked and scripted for past touches and all that. Just be able to set it to where that object does not interact with the mouse. It's click through.
Okay, so you're basically defining some objects as being just, ignore this object when you're trying to figure out what you're hitting on a click, and then you would just get the next thing.
Yeah, it would allow things like you could have an overlay HUD that gives your screen information, but you'd be able to click through it to other HUDs. It would allow for things in world like prim mist to be used in areas where people want to sit on things. It has 100 different uses, but
yeah, that seems like a good idea. I don't remember it
I created
before,
a JIRA on it today because I couldn't
yeah.
find a JIRA on it. But
okay, but we'll take a look at that the next time. The next time we go through feature requests, we generally run through the list once a week and discuss.
Yeah, actually, we talked about that one. This week, I think that what we will probably end up doing for that is rather than make it something you can set with a script, just make it a property you can set when you're building from the viewer.
Well, yeah, that was the idea. It's just the reason I gave the script example is there's already the past touches for the scripting, but this would be different. This would be just a feature you click on the building box to make
right.
it.
That's the idea. I would like it to be true that properties that any built object has that are persistent regardless of unless something is actively changing them, can all be set directly from the viewer, rather than only providing a way to set them by running a script in them. Because that way leads to scripts that get put in just for the purpose of setting a property and then have no further use, right? So it would be nice to be able to edit all of those things directly from the viewer. All of them is something that will doubtless take a long time.
Like the one that's essentially Phantom, but Collision interacts with it. I cannot remember the name of it ever, but there's a script you can set it to. It's basically Phantom, but it can be interacted with Collision. And there's no way to set that. Volume detect, yeah.
Right, and we're certainly not going to undo any of the things that you can only do with scripting. Those script properties will stay around, and there are lots of cases for object properties that fairly obviously you will want to frequently change and therefore they should be scriptable because that's what scripting is for. But things like this one, probably doesn't fit that criteria.
Just thought I'd bring the idea here.
I don't think we have anything currently in the works for things like the nimble volumetric clouds. Might be a question for Ryder if he swings by at some point. Mirrored clouds. Oh, hey, Ryder. Hey, Ryder, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Cool. We had a couple of questions about EAP and rain and clouds and things.
All right. Can people repeat the questions? And I can respond.
You mean you can't read our minds?
No.
Next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's only premiums. Let's see the time. Rain and EAP. Okay, weather systems. Penny. Weather systems are not planned. Nor are Graham would be. Nor are we going back to the actual clouds. There'll be shader effects. No plans for reflections to Roscoe. And Kira, what do you mean by the legacy cloud simulation? There is wind already. The sailors use it. Yes, we are not going back to the fluid mechanics for clouds. And no, that simulation does not exist anymore. That's a
Talking
little
about
beyond the
simulation,
scope
you're
of.
talking about.
Well, go ahead.
Are you talking about how I don't know if it's still going, but I remember when I first came, they talked about how there was wind and it would affect flexi prims. Is that tied in?
If I push the speak button.
Yes, and that still exists.
Yeah,
Why?
the wind affecting flexi prims. I think it affects particles too. That
Yeah, it
still
does.
that is still there. That's not going anywhere. It's really kind of outside the scope of EAP. Although it would be an interesting enhancement. Yeah, the sailing community would kill us if we did, Arton.
I don't think we're looking to encourage people to use more flexi prims in general, though, are we?
No, you cannot control this. There are no EAP parameters for dealing with wind.
Yeah, we were talking about mirrored clouds earlier. It generalizes, I think.
I will take a look at the Nimble link you sent me, but no, I don't think it's not it's not part of it. Clouds have a mirror lining. Okay.
Any update on EAP in general? How far along things are, when we might see stuff coming out, all that good stuff?
Right. Things are actually moving along pretty well. We have a blocker on the back end that we're trying to get cleared. Once that's cleared, I'll have some simulators that will support settings to QA within hours. Yeah, type faster, Ryder. And when QA gives that and the first the first project viewer the okay, we'll be able to have something in your hands.
Sounds very spiffy. Okay, looking at the question about size limits, 0 to the 10th, I think you're talking about the question about upload bigger, res bigger prims outside the 64 limit. I don't think we have any current plans to look at that. Again, don't rule things out forever, but it's not currently in the works. What are people typically shooting for when they want larger numbers? Are you trying to kind of do big builds in one chunk?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
lot.
exactly
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Especially with, like I said,
It's
with the
not
land
that you actually
prices
want
going
Godzillas
down.
or whatever.
Well, no, it's not we want Godzillas. We just want to be able to upload our work in. I mean, now that the price of land has gone down, getting a full sim has been really attractive. And as a sim builder and building a bunch of like sim surrounds and building towns and stuff, we can just do it all in Blender and then bring it in. But you got to chop it up into pieces and then try to put it back in world. It's such a pain in the butt to do that. And it's like, if we were in open sim, we could have just uploaded the whole thing in there. And they're like, well, it is a pain. So is there any way this could be a plan? You guys can think about it some more, because with land prices going down and everybody buying it, you're going to see a lot more people wanting to bring in whole sims and stuff like that.
At the very least, being able to link farther apart than 64 meters would make it a lot easier to set things up.
It's also for things like sim surrounds. Right now, they're created by stacked sculpties they're megaprim sculpties stacked on top of each other that create the sim surround. If we could have mesh megaprims, essentially, we could make mesh sim surrounds and get rid of the sculpty versions.
And can we even still get megaprims, short of finding some legacy ones that are floating around?
Nope, legacy.
No, I've been asking for that for a while.
Yeah, so we have these old builders who are the only ones who can do these things, and that's kind of messed up.
They were like, yeah, griefers were grief regardless, and it doesn't matter. Like the whole argument about, oh, you can't make them big because griefers are grief. I seen somebody res a tree and then crash a whole sim. So anything can be used for griefing. Even if you have to limit it to it's only the sim owner who can res them or anything, any kind of progress towards getting bigger prims would be so grateful.
Oz, do you have any comment on this kind of building in the large discussion?
There are a lot of things we're thinking about in the longer term. None of that is on the short-term roadmap, not on the this year roadmap. But in particular, we had a pretty good discussion recently about sim surrounds and whether there's a better way for us to tackle that problem. That is, create those effects without having to use some of the mechanisms that are used today.
Were you thinking more of like sculptable land off sim where you couldn't build anything, but you could sculpt the terrain through the building tools, or what?
We haven't really gotten to specifics. Just that the conversation started because we were doing one of our visits to somewhere in world, and we were impressed by the sim surrounds that they had, and that sort of started a conversation about, wouldn't it be great if doing things like this was easier?
Yeah, Sculpties definitely have their uses, but they also have their limitations, just like every other piece of tech in SL.
Yeah, the biggest issue with a Sculpty sim surround is your every single avatar on your sim is essentially inside the Sculpty, so that can cause some issues here and there.
Honestly, I've seen really good work with Sculpty sim surrounds, but you could do a lot more with mesh. It's just there's less limitations that way.
Oh, there was a comment about the 5 meter bone limit. I think the latest project viewer has that backed out because it looks like we need to have a more complicated solution. The problem we're trying to prevent is encroachment issues where the displayed location of an Animesh is way off from where the object allegedly is, and causing consternation to people who aren't sure what's going on with stuff that seems to be somewhere that it isn't. But it sounds like just having a per joint limit is probably overly restrictive for larger objects. So that's actually one of the things that I'm hoping we'll be able to do a cleaner fix for once this new bounding box calculation stuff is done. Because if we actually have an accurate real-time bounding box for for a skeleton that has rigged content on it, whether that's an avatar or an Animesh, then we could do smarter constraints and constrain how far away the bounding box can be from the object's root, rather than doing it on a per joint basis. So we'll see how that shakes out once this new scheme is working. You can upload your consciousness to the grid if you can keep it in within the limits of the key value pair system, I guess. Bug 216352. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to work on it yet, but it's been imported. It's on the pile. This is animations not rendering if they were stopped and started while host object is selected. adds them all selected but doesn't remove them. Okay. Yeah, it's probably not that hard to fix. It's just I haven't had a chance to work on it yet. You see, Big Rock people. What is the difference? Is one of them using the material system and one not?
One's sculpt, one's mesh.
Yeah.
It's obvious there is a big difference between the two because you can tell just by resing them. Res one on the ground, then res the other. One loads a hell of a lot faster than the other, so there is a difference. They're not exactly the same.
It may well not be true after the Arctan project is done that they will have the same land impact relationships that they have now.
Yeah, I mean when the cost calculations for mesh went into effect, there were a lot of the same discussions that we're having now about Animesh. Well, this thing that is exploiting our horrible formula is only 1 Li. Why isn't this other thing 1 Li? And it's a kind of a race to the bottom if you try to keep everything consistent with legacy bad formulas. We're always trying to make things more accurate rather than less. Ease of success, but that's the goal.
So the goal is not technically to get rid of Sculpties.
The goal is not at all to get rid of Sculpties. The goal is to provide better feedback for people on what the real costs of things are.
But they're not Kyra. They've got a bad calculator for land impact. They're all just one instead of their real cost.
Yeah, but Sculpty is technically just a prim with the texture on it.
Yeah.
That's why they're only one.
Scrolling back a little ways, there's an Animesh question that I don't understand. If an Animesh is attached to the avatar, is it possible to rig bento mesh to sit over the Animesh but be attached to the avatar as bento mesh? I'm sorry, I'm not following. What are you trying to do exactly?
Okay, so for example, if the Animesh was like a dog like I'm wearing, but I wanted to wear a coat on the dog, so the coat would be bento mesh attached to the avatar, and the dog would be Animesh attached to the avatar.
Oh, okay. So I think the way you would attach a coat in that case would just be to add the coat to the dog's link set. It would basically be another prim in the,
Okay, so
in the
so it's
dog.
only one attachment point, but you can have a multi.
Yeah.
A multi. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
you can have a whole bunch of different mesh objects that are all part of the same Animesh link set, and they're all referencing the same skeleton. So if you want to
And
have
can they have different
coat
scripts
for your
so they
dog
would
or whatever,
so
they
they
can,
would be
yeah.
animated differently? Okay, so for instance, it could be an Animesh dog with an Animesh tail using different scripts.
Yeah, the tail could contain different animations and could drive them with a separate script.
Okay.
But whether or not you want to do it that way, you can also just drive
Yeah.
all your animations from the root.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're talking about attachment points in two different senses. You can have one Animesh attached to your avatar at a time. So if you want to have a Animesh dog on your head or whatever, you can do that. But the Animeshes themselves don't support attachments the same way that avatars support attachments. So you can't put a put a collar on the dog using a neck attachment point. Something similar with.
But if that collar was rigged for the neck of the dog and you linked it to the Animesh dog, it would go in place when the animation took effect, correct?
Yeah, that would be the way to do it.
And when it's all linked together, it's considered one Animesh, not each linked part a different Animesh.
Right. There's one skeleton associated with the whole link set, and all the rigged meshes in that link set are going to be tracking the same skeleton. Server code here 2 days ago. Let's see. There was an update to the there was an update to the Animesh simulator build. That was a merge we had pulled from the latest trunk code and another dirt sim that's going out before Animesh would be. I think the only functional change is that for the triangle count limits, we had been, we checked that for Animeshes. We checked that for res Animeshes, but we didn't check it for Animeshes. Checking in. It's not a big functional change, I don't think.
Galather, Animesh can only use the bento skeleton. You can't use a custom rig. You can move the bento skeleton bones around and create a custom rig, but you can't bring in your own rig.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, the bento skeleton is just the skeleton, right? That's the set of joints that all avatars support and all Animeshes support. Medhu is, among other people, has done work with getting sort of the effect of a custom rig by repositioning the bones in the standard skeleton.
And it's worth it's worth noting that if the lab had to devise a custom rig system, we wouldn't be getting Animesh anytime soon.
And there's actually a great video, I think you did it, Medhu, showing how to take a custom skeleton and apply a bento skeleton to it. It's a great video. It uses a elephant's trunk, I believe.
That's not easy though. It's almost like I have to control that rig with another rig, though, basically.
Well, yeah, I think that's what you did in the video.
And the snake does that too. The snake is actually controlled by a completely different rig to hold everything together.
All right. Well, looks like we're about at time for this week. Next week, I'm not sure about next week. Often we have a company meeting. Yeah, it looks like we do have a company meeting next week at the same time. So we won't be meeting next week, and then we should be meeting the following weeks for the rest of the month. I'll update the wiki with the schedule, but I think that's how it's going to go. All right. Well, talk to you later. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Veer.
Thanks, Londons.
Think about it, though. Think about that size thing before you go. Remember, seriously.
I wonder if there's any jurors for that.
I don't know. I doubt it. I know I was supposed to write one, but I'm not good at writing JIRAs.
The Lucy, size thing, there's tons of JIRAs for it.
What's the cap, Lucy? I don't even know what the cap is.
I think it's 100,000 for Animesh.
It does seem kind of low.
I mean, does the cap actually even do anything? Couldn't they just, if you go over the cap, you cut your mesh in two? Or am I misunderstanding how it works?
No, that's basically it. You go over the cap, you cut your mesh in two, and you just join it. It's for one single mesh object. The cap is 100,000.
Yeah, then there's no point in the cap whatsoever. If it's such an easy way to get around it, all you're doing is annoying people.
Actually, I thought it was per object, not... I don't think you could do that.
If it's per link set, then yeah. Okay.
The cap is
per link set.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, it's still annoying people, so...
Yeah, that's becomes severely annoying.
Especially since it sounds like we're going to have to if you want accessories for your thing, people are going to have to link their thing to your thing.
Yeah, well, at least it's better than the 20K
100,000
limit they first said.
100,000 will give you 165 land impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have some of my Animesh monsters that are well over 100,000, but we're talking highly detailed dragons, and minotaurs. And
Well, that's what I mean.
Want several 165?
I mean, if someone wants to accept that land impact, then they should be able to. I mean, yeah, I believe 100,000 is a lot, but
yeah, 100,000
that doesn't cover everything.
That's, well, then you should use normal maps and stuff.
Well,
if I were setting
it's not just avatars.
It's more like 200,000. You know, as a cap.
Well, it's not that the single avatar is 100,000, because what if your mesh has different states? It's like my monsters. It looks one way when it's healthy and alive. After you kill it, the mesh, there's two meshes. One disappears, the other appears, and it has a dead state where the rib cage is cut open, and those are linked. So,
well, just do faces and transparencies and stuff without making a whole new mesh.
Yeah, that's limiting.
It really is.
And let's face it, we're talking about avatars that really the most useful thing about this isn't going to be avatars. It's going to be
they're not
resonables.
avatars. So
people coming up with unique things to do with pets and mounts and I don't know, make an Animesh house or
than Avatar itself. I mean, even if the most efficient creator, you went as efficient as possible, you're talking minimum 20K for the Avatar. Throw a few clothing items on them, and now they're over.
Exactly.
yeah.
Right, but don't make it naked. If you don't have the layers like that.
Well, no, look at,
exactly.
You make
You
a
have to
mannequin
develop
for your
around.
store. Your mannequin for your store where you sell mesh clothing. And then the Animesh mannequin, you put a jacket on it, a shirt on it, a pair of pants on it, a hat on it. You've blown your 100,000 limit.
Well, then you make more efficient content. I mean, 100,000 is generous, I think.
Well, just hair alone can be 30 to 50.
Trust me, any AAA game, you would not see 100,000 triangle.
You're right.
NPC.
You're right,
you
but they
wouldn't see it.
also don't have an NPC market. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
and then
you
you
should
got their
make
systems
better-
are
you
made
should
to make them
make
look
better
good.
Content. You should just make better content. Use normal maps to get the details. Don't put the details in the geometry.
Well, I don't know. To me, it's in today's day and age too. You have to. It's almost like two worlds we're battling against at this time, because geometry's not the issue.
Well,
it's like
it is in a way.
not really. Not really. It's really the amount of textures that people want to go crazy with, and texture size.
Yeah.
That's where everything gets completely blown out. But when it comes to modeling and stuff like that, what really sells something is, things to be like real life, where you don't have all these sharp edges that you do with low poly modeling.
This is not real life, though. It's a game engine. It's not even a very good game engine. So.
Well, I totally get what you're saying, but at the same time, too, as an artist, you want things to be.
If you were doing a model for a movie that was rendered on a render farm, 100,000.
That's not.
That's fine, but
game engines, even Second Life, as we can see, can handle millions of polygons. It's all about how you use them.
Right, but you got to have scenery. I mean, if that's sure. If you got your dragons on on the sim and that's all that's on the sim, that's great, you know. Blow it out with 100,000. But you've got environment.
If
I'm telling
I'm
you,
making a game,
no game. If you were working for a game studio and you came up with 100,000,
no, that's
you
total
submitted
bullshit,
100,
Joey. That's
100,000
total bullshit, Joey. If
polygon
I'm making a
NPC.
game, and the dragon is my main boss character, and I'm loading a scene that only has the dragon and
Yeah, if
you know,
it's
the
your main
scenery
thing,
around
but if it's just an NPC or I mean even
then that's
the
a
main
different kind
character.
of character.
And also they
But
have
you can't tell
much
me there are
better-
not boss characters that are over 100K, because there definitely are.
It's rare. It's very rare.
Oh, I don't know.
And Second Life is not those types of engines. I mean, we just barely get materials.
Well, it handles it pretty well considering what people are doing to it, you know.
And also, you've got a nice graphics card, I'm sure.
I'm okay. I mean,
What do you got? You got like probably 900 series.
I have a 1060, and I had to get that.
There you go.
And
1060.
I paid $600 for that fucking 1060.
Right. Well, that's they're like 300 now.
I think he bought it when they were doing the huge Bitcoin crunch,
Right.
and they all went up in price.
I didn't have a choice. I had to get my VR thing set up, so I needed the card.
Yeah, see,
I don't know.
that's
I
Nathan
think the
Drake.
big
That's the main character. They do spend some extra on the main character. They don't spend, extra on the NPCs.
See that's the big problem is we don't have a real good way of communicating to people that they shouldn't be putting boss character graphics on like a teacup. We need better communication somehow.
Well, it's
get
also driven
little
by the
things-
customers.
Yeah. As I said,
No,
we
it's
need
driven by
better
the
ways of
creators.
communicating that
Driven by
this
the creators.
teacup has as many vectors as that dragon, and maybe they should go find a different teacup to buy.
Well, if there was a way to accurately, and I don't know why there's not a way, but if there was a way to accurately calculate texture use, then we would have accurate representations in our scores and everything. But as it is, we do not, because even like Animesh, it's only calculating triangles, and that is not taking into account the megabytes of data, hundreds of megabytes of data that's going to come in just from textures.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well, yeah, people
a
putting
mesh might be
a-
10 megabytes, but the textures will be 100, 200, 300, might even be a gig.
Somebody putting a 1024 texture on a ring on their finger.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
There needs to be better ways of handling that too. I don't. Honestly, I
could see
think
the system calculating it itself and resizing the texture to whatever it needs.
I absolutely agree with that. That's what needs to happen. They need to have, like, when you upload a texture, they need to have several sizes of it in the
I'm
system.
surprised they don't do that.
Yeah. And then you just, on the edit panel, you can just have it set to auto or let people manually select which texture size they want and make it so that's something that can be edited even when something is no mod. Because the
The only
creators
thing
will
they
set
do-
to the highest thing and
Well, it could be set by distance. That's normally what games do. They have the progressive download. That's all they have, where they just